All right, so today we are going to be looking at starting to translate sentences back into algebraic expressions and then eventually with equations. So our topic is just translating algebraic expressions. A lot of this is just going to take practice as you become familiar with different keywords. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to review some of those keywords that you should look for in a sentence that'll indicate different operations. So for example, words that we might see that would indicate addition, and granted, these are not exhaustive. There are other words that could possibly be used, but these are kind of the ones that we would see most often, are things like the word sum, more than, increased by. Anytime we see the word total, it's typically going to be addition. We might also just simply see the word plus or all together. So if you were to see any of these words in a sentence, they indicate that we're going to use addition in that. And then moving on to subtraction. Subtraction, we would see that word difference because that means the answer to a subtraction problem. We might see the word less than, and we're just going to put a little star next to that one, as well as the phrase subtracted from. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. We might also see the word minus or even just decreased by. Multiplication, we would see words like times, the word product. We might see the word twice, double or triple, which means 2 times or 3 times. Anytime we see the word of, it usually indicates multiplication. Or per, so like miles per hour, we would do miles times hours, or like a lot of times that we'll use multiplication in that. This one is not probably used quite as much, the per. And that one can get tricky too because sometimes we'll have to use division with that. Division, divided by. Quotient is one of those key words that you should know because it means the answer to a division problem. Half, third, or if we are going to separate, although that one typically not used as often. Now, the trickiest one is typically subtraction, because when we see phrases like less than or subtracted from, we usually have to reverse the order, meaning that it does not, it's not written in the order that it is in the sentence. So, for example, if you said like 7 less than a number. Even though 7 is listed first and then we see less than, this doesn't, a common mistake is that people will put 7 minus the number, but because it's 7 less than the number, we would actually start with the number and then subtract 7. So this phrase, and that's what we mean by reverse the order, is that even though 7 is written first in the sentence, it actually comes later in the expression. So let's just go through a couple of examples. 5 more than a number. This is kind of another one that you could reverse the order, although with addition, order doesn't matter as much. So we might write this as either 5 plus n or n plus 5. Now looking at our next example, we have the quotient of a number in -2. We're going to write it kind of in that order. So it's going to be n divided by -2. And most often now at this point, when we write division problems, we're going to write them as fractions and not actually using that division symbol. Twice a number is going to indicate multiplication, or 2 times the number. So we're going to write that as 2n. And whenever we have a number in a variable, and we'll talk more about this, we're going to get rid of that multiplication symbol and we're just going to write them next to each other. And then here we have a number decreased by 7. Even though this one is subtraction, because it's decreased by 7, we actually would just write that as n minus 7. Now you can pause the video and try 5 through 10 on your own, and then I will just write in the answers for you to check, and then we're going to go through a few more starting with number 11. So go ahead and pause the video now. All right, so number 5 would just be 12n. 3 subtracted from a number would be n minus 3. And really you could use any variable that you want. I'm just using n in place of number. $15 an hour would be 15 times n. $5 less than the cost of the ticket. The sum of a number and 24. And then 50 divided among several students. So hopefully you did okay on all those. Number 11, we have 2/5 of a number. Notice we have that multiplication indication in there with that of. So here we would write this as 2/5 n. Number 12, half of a number minus 19. So we would write half a number and then minus 19. And then here on number 13, we see that less than. Remember, so we're going to indicate, that indicates that we're going to reverse. So we're actually going to do the product of a number and -4 first. So we have -4n, and then it's going to be 11 less than that. All right, so why don't you pause the video and try these next 3 on your own. All right, so the total of 8 times a number and 5. So total would mean addition. Number squared, remember we talked about that means to the second power. And difference would be subtraction, not addition. Oops. And then 3/4 of a number would be 3/4 times the number plus 17. Now we're just going to go through a couple of these. We're not going to go through all of them. And the thing when you're writing expressions, because there's multiple words, there's more than one correct answer for all of these. So for n minus 9, we might just say a number decreased by 9. For the next one, I might just say P divided by 8. We could also say the quotient of P and 8, or a number divided by 8, and so forth. The next one, I might say the product of -5 and a number. So you kind of get the gist of it, is that you're just kind of picking some of those words. If we jump to one of these bottom ones, let's say like 23, I might say something like 1 less than the product of -7 and a number. You could also say the product of -7 and a number decreased by 1, right? So there are multiple answers that you can do. I would suggest kind of finishing these last few that we didn't do, and then maybe checking with a table partner and just kind of see how you did and compare and check and see if that would make sense as you're working through.